Welcome to the Performance Portfolio Podcast with Coop and Coop. Greg Cooper and Cooper Allen bridge the gap between performance and finance to help you build a stronger life and a more resilient future. Let's get into today's episode.
Coop, for those watching, you're dressed up, I'm dressed down, but that's how we roll. Can you tell I'm a judo coach? Can you tell that Coop is in the financial world? Collared shirt, clean cut, me over here, t-shirt. But that's beside the point. Today, we are talking about a number of things, but kind of two opposing topics, dichotomy, if you will. Blind optimism, blind skepticism. Both can be dangerous. Both can be necessary when you don't do it blindly. So, Coop, this was another gem out of your brain. Why was this on your mind? What's the opening comments on why this is today's topic?
Yeah, I had someone in business that I was chatting with recently. Uh, it come to me with an issue that wasn't yet an issue. They just assumed that it was going to be an issue and freaking out, panic, spiraling, and and I'm naturally someone who does get a little anxious and I think of worst case scenario. And then the difference though is that I've learned to, when I do that, say, okay, well, let's prepare for worst case scenario and build out contingency plans for contingency plans without getting emotionally tied into that absolutely is going to happen. So I think it can be important to sometimes overthink some stuff and be properly prepared. But there's a difference between being properly prepared and just jumping down to that means this person's going to screw me or they're going to want this info and it's going to this or this isn't going to happen. And um, because the nuance that we're going to talk about today, if you don't have it, if you don't have the ability to get 30,000 feet on your own life and look at your own life from a third party lens, it's going to be very difficult to achieve the level of fulfillment that you want because you fall into either one of two buckets. You fall into either I blindly trust the media, the government, banks, employers, just the establishment system that we have, blind trust for it. Well, if you have a blind trust for it and you just put the blinders on, you'll work a 9 to 5, invest your money at the bank, not get a great rate of return, not save a ton of money, be the average person who's paycheck to paycheck, basically living out a sad country song. Get to the end of your life, you were sold the dream, you start to live the dream, and then you pass away a couple years later, and it just we in our world we call it the 40-40-40 scam. You work 40 hours a week for 40 years to retire on 40% of what you couldn't afford to live on before. Uh, so that's one person because they so blindly trust everything they've been taught and they don't question anything or they don't challenge anything. So it's hard to live a fulfilled life because you're just doing the next doing the next domino and not wanting to ruffle any feathers. Then there's the next person who the pendulum swings so far to the other side where it's complete conspiracy brain and everyone is evil and everything is manipulation and the world's out to get me and uh, oh the government's only paying me 700 a month, they should be paying 1200, or they should be doing this, they should be doing that, and they're only doing it because of this, and just they just can't see the good in anything. And because of that, it's I think some of that is necessary because it helps you expose the truth about some of the things within the system. But too much of that then leads into somebody asks you a basic question that you could give a basic answer and just move on, and you spiral and create a bunch of anxiety about a problem that wasn't actually a problem. And that scenario I was talking about in business, I had an individual completely spiraling, blowing up my phone, and like, okay, well, go find out about this and this. And then this individual just kept going on, kept spiraling. And I'm like, until you found out about this and this, none of this is worth spiraling over. Get this piece of information before you jump to conclusions. And the individual hadn't got the piece of information. Finally, they got the piece of information, and we figured out that it was okay. None of what they were worried about was going to be an issue. It's like, yes, this thing that you were spiraling over would have been an issue if this and this weren't true, but then you figured out, you got educated and you realized that all was good. So I think that natural distrust, I think a healthy skepticism is important. I think it's important to ask questions. I think it's important to think outside of the box, but don't go so far that everybody's the enemy and now you don't trust anything, and you live in complete fear, and everything's always an issue, and you wonder why when you go to the doctor they give you six different medications for anxiety and depression and ADHD and all of that. So I'll be the first person to come across as maybe a little more conspiracy brained or a little bit more movement versus establishment, or call it whatever you want to call it. But you can't do it to the point where it destroys your life, or you're never going to be able to have the genuine human connection that you want to have a fulfilled life.
What has popped into my brain is it's funny, or first is, it's maybe the opposite for me, where I would say now less, but there were a time in my life where people saw me as recklessly optimistic because I'm a high energy, I'm a happy guy. Everything's all good. But now it's, yeah, I'm optimistic, but I'm realistic. And I view things with an optimistic lens, but knowing, yeah, okay, here are the potential risks, here are the challenges. Am I willing to face that? Sure. That's just me. And you nailed it, right? Anytime, whether we're talking optimism versus skepticism, left versus right politically, whatever, when you go too far to one end of either any spectrum, it's a potentially and usually bad thing. You can't be so rooted here that the minute somebody talks from the other side of the room that you're just hate, you're wrong. And the other thing that popped in my head was a scene from an HBO series called The Defiant Ones. It's about Jimmy Iovine and how he and Dr. Dre created the empire they have. Interscope, Beats, partnerships with Apple. Like, they're two very stout businessmen that some people know a lot about, but I'm a big Jimmy Iovine fan. And he talks about racehorses. We're talking about blind optimism, blind skepticism, putting blinders on. But there's a reason why racehorses wear blinders. Because if they look left or if they look right, they will misstep and they will fall because they're not paying attention to what is in front of them, what their mission is. What's the mission in a horse race? To be first. But if they look left or right, they get distracted, and then that's when crashes happen. So you can't look left or right. You have to look forward and focus on what is in front of you, what is real. You have to have some skepticism. You have to have some optimism. You have to have realism. But it all needs to be integrated. And again, I dislike when people talk about balance. Because the problem with balance is it's always going to tip one way or the other eventually. We play balance games in judo. 100% of the time, everybody will fall over at one point because balance is not infinite. Balance is not absolute. Integration can be. When you integrate all of these aspects, your world vision, your approach, how you perceive things, how you communicate things will improve. But you need to have that integration of, okay, I'm very optimistic that this new business venture is going to take off. We got the right team. The idea is solid. Things are going to be great. Here's the future. Here's the 10-5-3 1-year vision. But if you have zero skepticism of, we are going to run out of money, we may run out of money, we may have the wrong people on the team, actually. We may not get that VC. We may not get XYZ, and it might all blow up. You have to be aware of both sides of that spectrum. You have to be aware of all of the things and know that, yeah, just because something's great right now doesn't mean it always will be. Just because watching the news or reading headlines, the world's crumbling and everybody's going to die and new thing and this turmoil, geopolitical, new scary thing that's going to kill us all. Yeah, but what's in front of you?
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. There's a huge difference too, and I mean we could talk like work-life integration, work-life balance, and the difference between the two for sure. Uh, but there's a huge difference as well between balance and nuance. And I think that's where people get stuck sometimes is we're not saying have a balanced approach, a balance. It's not about balancing. It's not you need three opinions that are Republican and three opinions that are Democrat. It's not that you need three friends who live in Ontario and three friends who live in Alberta. It's just when a topic comes up, don't be so invested in one line of thinking that you can't see all of the variables. That's the difference between balance and nuance. And people just emotionally hijack themselves into a particular way of thinking. And I think it hurts them incredibly. Uh, I mean, we've talked about this in the past where 15-second TikTok brain does not help with that. But I'm a firm believer, and I talk about this a lot, especially in the financial world, but it applies to any world where I used to say that the system is broken. I think that's wrong. Like, the system's not broken, it just wasn't designed for you specifically. In saying that, as much as I will chant the rally cry and go to war on system wasn't designed for the middle class to get ahead in terms of what they're making us put in our bodies and the way the economy is shaping up and all that type of stuff. I think it's the important nuance is as much as the system wasn't designed for you, it also wasn't designed personally against Greg Cooper. That's a huge difference. Because if you go, hey, I know that this system isn't cut out the best for the lower and middle class to get ahead and achieve the life that they want, then you can start to look at it as a third party to that as instead of as a personal attack. You can say, hey, I get that these institutions have different incentives and different ways that they're going to profit off of me. Well, why don't I get educated on how they're doing that so I can limit that as much as possible and get the resources around me and figure out how to acquire the relationships that are going to profit off of me, but they're also looking out for my best interests. Can I connect with people who profit when I profit? So that yes, they're making money and they see me as a tool to make some money, but it also benefits me as well. And there's win-win scenarios that are created in business or in personal relationships where maybe it's not money, maybe it's a feeling. If you and I both feel really good when we're hanging out together, well, I'm hanging out with you because selfishly I feel good when I'm around you. Well, you're hanging out with me because selfishly you feel good when you hang around me. So create win-win relationships personally and create win-win relationships professionally. And like there's a lot to be said for just when you can have that level of healthy skepticism, it does create a position of empowerment. It teaches you to challenge things. It teaches you to get more information, to get educated. But you're just not a conspiracy theorist that's ruining your life, basically. Uh, and thinking, yeah, everything's a scam and nobody can be trusted and the game is rigged, so why bother? And the rich control everything. And you're just going to live your whole life bitter. You're going to doom scroll and that's it. You're going to literally live as a victim because you're sitting there thinking everything's rigged and nothing matters. So I'm just going to live my life and hope for the best. Well, hope's not a strategy.
That has made me think of like a coaching scenario about it. Confidence without evidence is fantasy. Skepticism without action is paralysis. And in the gap of those two ideas is where performance lives. Right? We just got back from national championships with Team Alberta and with Coop Coop. And in judo, everybody weighs in, then the draws come out. And inevitably, everybody will look. First and foremost, they need to know when their fight match is, what color of gi they're wearing. But then they look at the names. Some overanalyze, some underanalyze. The overanalyzers, oh, I got the best guy, hardest person, first round. This is the day's over. No medal for me. The underanalyzers don't care. Now, is one better than the other? If I in that scenario, I'd say maybe the underanalyzer. But both can be dangerous. So when either of those scenarios and they are presented to me, I frame it like this. To the person that views that, oh, I got the best number one seed first fight, day's done. There's no way. Fair that you have that thought. So what can we control? Let's have the best possible warm up we can have. Let's get exhausted. Let's make sure we test all of our throws, all of the things, so we feel everything is ready. But the great part about getting that person first is they haven't had a fight yet. They don't have momentum of a potential win. They might not be as warmed up as you. And let's control and let's go in knowing that we had an incredible warm up. So now that first overall seed that you have first, it's their first fight too. They don't have momentum from you got them in the semifinals. They ran through everybody to get there. Let's beat them. You beat that person first round, they're out. Now the first seed's out of the way. You had your hardest fight of the day, first fight, perfect. Now it becomes perceivably easier. Every fight is difficult in its own right. But now you have that momentum of you didn't just win your first fight, you won the first fight against the best player in that division. Unreal. So that means you're the best player in that division right now. Good job. The underanalyzer, the over optimistic of I don't care who I have. Okay, that is an excellent mindset. Potentially easier to coach, but harder to rein in. Okay, we're confident. We got a great warm up. We're feeling good. Then they start going, well, it's only 4 fights to gold. That's a pretty easy day. It's a simple day, but it's not easy. So now what do we need to focus on? The fight right in front of us. The first 10-second exchange. Let's rein that confidence in. What do we know? They're left-handed. Okay, left-handed play. And now we need to look at the realist and the skepticism of, well, what if they know your judo better than you know yours? That means you need to go in with a plan, not worrying about what they're going to potentially do, but knowing as soon as that ref says go, hajime, that you have a plan and you're going to go in and execute that to the best of your ability. So now, both ends of that spectrum. But you need to be in that gap of both, of being confident, but also not so skeptic that the other guy across the box from you is better than you. So it's that line, and that's where performance lives, in my opinion. Some people might disagree, and I'd be happy to hear other people's opinions.
Yeah, I love that. I'll contextualize it to kind of the everyday 9 to 5er as well when you talk about overanalyzer, underanalyzer. Is if you're an overanalyzer, maybe you've pre-planned your whole day or you've looked at a schedule, and the second something goes off schedule, you're panicked now, or you're frozen. You go fight, flight, or freeze mode, and you end up paralyzed. You're either paralyzed for the day or you're picking battles with your partner or a colleague or something for no reason, or you're just stressed out. And that's why you see so many people who actually have really easy jobs that get home and they're so burnt out and tired from the day. It's like, well, you didn't really do that much. If you actually broke it down, your 8-hour workday, you probably worked 3 hours of it and scrolled your email for a couple hours and a couple hours of water cooler talk. But you put so much mental pressure and stress on yourself for no reason that somebody who's a little bit more personally developed would have got all the work done by 10 a.m. and then just put their feet up on the desk and enjoyed the day. Then you have your underanalyzers who, where it helps is, yeah, you don't end up fight, flight, or freeze based on what your day looks like, but you also Greg, in your example, there were schedulers. Well, what if you're an employee who your boss is counting on you to be relatively independent, and so you don't have a scheduler like maybe an athlete would, where they show up to a tournament and things are scheduled. So you show up to your workday and you haven't scheduled anything for yourself because you've underanalyzed. You just don't care. Like whatever happens, happens. Well, great game plan. How are you going to win the day? How are you going to, if you're an employee, how are you going to do what's required for your organization to be profitable so you don't get fired? If you're an entrepreneur or self-employed, how are you going to do what's required for you to be profitable at all? So some people just they're so planned that they're not planned, and then there's other people that are just they're not planned at all. And that's this it comes back to nuance. You got to be able to take yourself and your life seriously without taking the greater world so seriously that you hate it, and finding that balance. Bringing it specific to me, if we're talking about clients and families that we go out and serve, is if you treat me like an investment salesperson or an insurance salesperson, you have immediately put a limit on how I can help you, because that's the way that you're treating me. You're coming in from that mindset of, well, I don't trust the establishment. There must be something in it for you. Nobody just gives out a free review with maybe your intent's not great. Like if you treat me like a salesperson, no matter how good my intentions are, how good our team's intentions are, that's you're the barrier to your own success, because it's always going to be I'm on this side of the table and you're on the other side of the table. If you come in with the brain and the mindset of I'm a coach or a consultant to your situation, now I can come around the table and sit on the same side as you and go, how can we work on this together? What's your goal here? Your goal is to get proper protection because you have kids and you want to make sure that if something ever happened to you, you'll be okay. All right. Or your goal is to hit this financial independence number so that one day you could be working because you want to, not because you have to. Or, hey, I want to get this debt cleared off, and that would be that's the debt that's keeping me up at night right now. So I want to get that conversation out of the way. Okay, perfect. Let me get on your side of the table so we can solve that problem together. In the same way, in the performance lens, if I'm coming to you in my initial consult, I go, Greg, just give me the price for your packages, and I'll just go compare it to a couple other coaches and say, well, I don't even know what you can do for me. Yeah, why would we jump to something like that? Why would I not let you know, hey, dude, here's some of my insecurities around the world of performance, physically, mentally. Um, have you dealt with that in the past? Like what are some things you think you're really good at helping people overcome? Uh, how if you treat the whole world like they're trying to get something out of you, like you wouldn't go to the doctor and treat a doctor like a salesperson. You'd be very vulnerable with a doctor about here's everything head to toe that I've got wrong with me so that they prescribe you what you need to get better. So why would you treat anybody else in any differently than that? And it's sure, maybe you've been taken advantage of in the past and you've got your guard up. Okay, well, yes, you can have your guard up, but if it's 100% of the way up and I can never get through, well, the good news is I can't hurt you. The bad news is I can't help you. So at some point, yeah, you got to be able to nuance the two. And it's my favorite thing to do. You and I have talked about this a lot off air. It's my favorite thing to do is contextualize the performance world, the employee world, and then the financial world, and kind of see how similar it all is, really.
In all of that, I know last week we said we're potentially done beating this dead horse, but the reason why we're so repetitive, and maybe there's a point to it, I have to bring up, the water under the bridge, the moving past, and why forgiveness is so important, whether you forgive somebody up front or just internally to yourself, because you don't have a reason to talk to that person again. It is so relevant because more often than not, the reason why people have that guard up all the time is because of a past trauma, a past interaction where they got screwed over, a business interaction, they had a bad accountant, they had whatever. And that guard is up all the time. And they view that everybody is out to get them, and they view that every person is a potential opportunity for them to get screwed. Very well, potentially, yes. But that is not the outcome that will always happen. Life is not a number of absolutes. Life is a number of opportunities and a number of scenarios that are going to play out the way you dictate them to, the way that you lead them to, and the way that how you're carrying yourself will make that outcome. Now, you can't always dictate how that outcome will finish because things happen. Maybe everything was going great, then you got screwed over. Maybe everything was going great, and then something out of your control changed the scenario. Right? Like here's a good example of that. Let's say we live in a different part of the world that is currently in a civil war or some geopolitical unrest. You were starting a business. Everything was going great. He had clients, he had customers, but now there's a war that broke out and your business was in the real estate market. Well, guess what just happened to that whole country's real estate market? It crashed. And it's crashed for the next however long, the foreseeable future. Your business is done. There is not much that you can do to fix that. So you could say, woe is me, or you could pivot. This is why people move. This is why people immigrate. You can find solutions. It's not going to be easy. And this is an extreme example, but it's a very real example. I had a conversation with somebody about this the other day that comes from a part of the world that is in a state like that. Well, guess why they moved to Canada? To find a better opportunity. They could have stayed where they were. Woe is me. I'm now in this, and that's the way it's going to be. Life sucks. I got screwed by something completely out of my control. No, but they made the change. They moved here. They're still doing exactly what they did there, but it's working for them now. And they're being productive for themselves, for their community, for their family, for the people around them, for their clients. And they've made that change. Right? So it's what did that person do? They weren't blindly skeptic. They weren't blindly optimistic. They were in that gap. They were realistic. Maybe when they started their business, they were super optimistic. No, that's not going to happen. And that's why they created that success. Or maybe they were super skeptic. And because they were skeptic at the start, they had put in contingencies to make sure that if that does happen, we have a way to get to another country that is going to welcome us, that we can get to doing all the right things. It's going to be a challenge. We got to do all this immigration paperwork, get a PR, get all this stuff, new business license, legal. But they did the things. And if they didn't have any of those things set up before, they figured it out on the way because they weren't so on one side or the other. And you could take that to a small problem. Everything's going great, and now your number one employee quit, found a better job. They're not with you anymore for whatever reasons. Whew. Well, now my bucket's getting real full real fast, and I don't have a way to make a new hole in it. But have you sat back and asked yourself why? Maybe you were too skeptic about that person or too optimistic that they were always going to be there to help you. Be in the gap between the two. Operate in the real, not in the what if or the everything's going to be all sunshine and rainbows, because it's not.
100%. There's such a dangerous spiral with woe is me that in the same way you negatively spiral on a woe is me mindset, you can positively spiral in a solution-oriented mindset. Where when it's woe is me, it turns that person cut me off in traffic to you trying to look to see what race or gender they are to go, oh, well, we shouldn't let people have licenses. Only I should have a license, or why don't I even need to drive in the first place? I should be able to get a helicopter from where I'm going to where it's just like the amount of stupidity that goes on in your brain when you spiral. It's like person cuts you off in traffic. But people are so ignorant these days. They don't care. They don't. Maybe you were in the blind spot and they didn't see you. Maybe they've just had a long day at work and they don't really care. They're just trying to get home. Maybe they're speeding and swerving in and out of traffic because they're trying to get to the hospital because there's an emergency. Or maybe none of that's true, but you'd probably be a little bit healthier in your mind if you gave them the benefit of the doubt. Not to the point where they can hurt you. Someone's in front of you with a knife, maybe don't give them the benefit of the doubt. But if they cut you off in traffic, like figure out how to nuance it. And uh, if you get out of the mindset of thinking that everything's about you, because very rarely it is. And instead of thinking about, well, why are they asking that? Why did they say that? Why did they do that to me? How about just imagine playing poker and when a card comes out that you've got one person who's playing that goes, okay, these are the cards that I have. That was the hand that was dealt. How do I want to play this? Do I check? Do I bet? Do I fold? What do I do here? And the person you're playing against sees the hand and goes, well, why did the dealer play those cards? Why would he or she do that to me? You're never gonna win if that's how you think about it. It's just, okay, here was the card that was dealt. How do I play it? What is my next move here? And people spend so much time getting emotionally caught up in why did it happen? It's like, well, figure out how to play it first. Figure out what your next move is. Then after you've played it and you've got time to reflect back, then yeah, you can take some time to reflect back on why it happened and what you can learn from it and what you can carry forward next time. But uh, you got to play the hand you're dealt, and you got to make the next best move. To your point about the horse blinders, I don't even remember um, when we were talking about that. Uh, but just the ability for people to just keep your eye on what you need to do and stop letting your emotions and your distractions pull you off of it. Um, and to tie it back to the original point is don't let your skepticism turn into cynicism because it's the cynicism that will pull you off of everything. Skepticism, a healthy amount of it will actually help you stay focused on things while not being taken advantage of. Cynicism will creep in and get you to give up on things that you're close to achieving. You're close to achieving a certain relationship, a certain level of income, and you give up too soon. And you don't meet with the person who actually could have changed things for you or could have helped you or you could have built an awesome relationship with because you're whatever. You're anti-government or anti-capitalist or anti certain race or certain gender, anti this. Like, how about we stop being anti things and we start being pro things? How about I'm pro Greg instead of anti whatever you're not, and come from that place. And yeah, if I'm gonna give you a free financial review, you probably should be a little bit skeptical. You should take the review, but one of your first questions should be, well, if this is free, how do you get paid? It's a fair question. You shouldn't just blindly trust me. You should probably have a few questions for me. And when you ask that, I shouldn't be so hardened to be offended by that. I should be able to answer that. Go, this is why I can do this at no cost. This is how we get compensated. This is where we bring our value. This is why this conversation was worth it. But I guess people who can't bring value are uncomfortable having those conversations because they're environments where they can bring no value. But that's a whole other episode.
I like that you brought up the free consultation and why people should have a level of skepticism and optimism to it. Anytime something is given for free with no expectations of return, no obligation, no contract. Why? That person's going to tell you why. Maybe they just have the means to, and they see something in you that you don't, and they're just willing to help you. Maybe they're just that. This may be a bad. Maybe they're the Ned Flanders, and they're just happily doodly, the good neighbor that's what they do. But if it's a service, if it's connected to a potential service, right? Why? I give free trials for judo every weekend that I am not traveling with our team. When it's a child with their parent, there's usually not that question of why. Oh, test it out, see if you like it. If not, but when I get the adults, it's like why did the free trial? Not always, but it does come up. And I have three answers that I give everybody. First off, it's to show you the sport, to show you what judo is, whether you know a little bit or nothing about it at all, to see if you even like this thing with no contract, no skin in the game. Come join me for an hour. We're gonna have fun, or maybe you're gonna hate it, and that's fine too. Two, on the scenario that you do want to join a class, I can make an assessment of where you are physically, where you are with understanding the culture of our club, how you take in communication, how my communication works for you. So then when you do join that class and you do pay for that service, it's going to be more enjoyable for you up front right away. It's not, it takes away that testing out period. We tested it this hour. The third one is because I have the ability to do that on the weekends. Now, on a business use case, it's so we can get members. Hey, if we didn't offer this, we would have to rely on only people that have some level of buy-in, or they've heard judo, or they've seen UFC, or whatever the reason they wanted to just purchase right away. That's a small percentage of people. Well, now we're offering it for free so that people can try this thing that's new, that has a level of risk because it's a contact sport, that takes time out of their day because they have to go to class now, they have to travel, they have to get ready, they have to leave work early maybe, all these things. So it takes away the heightened skepticism. It takes away the heightened optimism that, oh, this is going to be the best thing ever. I saw UFC, judo, jiu-jitsu, all this stuff is super cool. Well, but maybe it's not for you. I do believe it. I love judo. It's my life. But it's not everybody else's. So free trial. Same thing with strength and conditioning. Same thing with my performance coaching. Try it out first. If I lose an hour of that time and you don't buy from me, I'm willing to do that to make sure that the experience is good for both you and for me.
Yeah. And those are perfect answers. And it's good because it turns someone from skeptical to understanding. And you wouldn't have had that level of understanding and that level of actually appreciation for you in a service role if they hadn't started as initially skeptical. So the cynical person never gets started with Greg. The skeptical person gets enough information that's required to have a deepened level of trust and understanding. And then the blind faith person gets started, but there's not the same trust as if they would have started as skeptical. So the goal isn't to trust the system blindly. It's to understand whatever the system is, whether we're talking the economy, whether we're talking financial advising, performance coaching, or just business 101, capitalism 101 as a whole. You just need to understand it well enough to navigate it as an intelligible adult. That's it. And so many people are trying to escape reality right now for some reason. Instead of saying, okay, well, let's just label what reality is and then figure out how to play the game. So many people, well, what's the next game? Well, how about you get really good at the current game? And then the skills that you're going to learn, getting really good at the current game, if the game changes, if the rules change, you'll be able to win at that. It might take a bit of time, but you'll be able to win at that game because you establish the foundation of what's currently going on. But it's like people, the old quote of people who make it happen, watch it happen, and wonder what happened. If you're just blindly following everything, you're watching it happen, but you're more in that bucket of wondering what happened because you have no idea how we got from here to here. If you're watching it happen and if you're aware, and that's why you're so skeptical, you're still not making it happen because you're so cynical that you're just sitting there watching it happen and you're annoyed. You live annoyed. But if you can watch it happen, be aware of what's happening, be willing to play the hand you're dealt, live in that zone that you talk about with a little bit of nuance. Then you can go from not just watching it happen and wondering what happened to now you're in that bucket of, okay, I can go make it happen here. And whatever it is will define what that looks like for you. But you cannot make it happen as a cynical person, and you cannot make it happen as a blind faith, blindly follow person. Because you're just somebody else will just steer the boat for you the entire time, no matter how awake you think you are.
I think that's a great note to end it on. But you nailed that, and yeah, I think there's gonna be a lot of value to the listeners, as always. I mean, I'm always gonna think that because the reason why we talk about what we talk about is to share the value and to share our thoughts. And if somebody takes one piece from that, from today's episode, that's what we're giving for free today. Don't
I
be
like it.
skeptical about it. We have nothing to gain here.
That's a great point. Yeah. What do we have to gain? Therapy. After a week of dealing with difficult people, we talk about how do we make people less difficult.
Exactly.
But,
Coop, this was another awesome one. Appreciate your time as always. And until next week, we'll see you later.
right on. See you then.
Thanks for tuning in this week. If you found value in today's episode, like, subscribe, and share with someone in your circle so they too can build a stronger life and a more resilient future.